All right, we are going to jump into construction cone, which is my lab for part 1. So we're going to show you how to insert reference images and then get started with making your construction cone. For a lot of you guys, you learned this in class. For those of you who missed it, that's what I am making this video for. All right, so we're going to go to, make sure you get a new scene in Maya. So if you're on the home page, just hit new. That's fine. And then I am going to go ahead and just hit new, yep. And then I am going to add in some reference images to start. So for this lab, you should have downloaded the construction cone reference image. If you don't have that yet, go ahead and go to lab files and download that image. So when I first come in, I'm going to hit the space bar and we're going to go to the front view, and this is where I'm going to add my first image. So right up here, this image plane, that's how you add reference images. So for starters, let's go ahead and grab one. For me, I think I have this in my downloads folder right here. What I like to do for most references is, rather than just have them in my downloads folder, I like to put them into my Maya files later. So if I'm actually working on a project, I want to make sure that all of my references are in one spot so they're easy to find. For this lab, I'm just going to use it for my downloads. So there it is right here, construction cone reference. Hopefully that's one of the only things you've downloaded. And then go ahead and hit open. Awesome. Okay, so that image plane came in for us. That looks good. And the first thing I want to do when this comes in is I want to go ahead and line this up with this grid in this front view. So you see how it's thicker on these middle grid lines? I'm going to line up the bottom of my cone with that bottom grid line, and then I'm going to try and center my cone. I'm just focusing on this part of the image, this cone right here. Don't worry about the rest. I'm going to center that cone as best as I can, and then I'm going to rotate this to match. So again, I'm using the hotkey W to move my cone around, try and center it as best as I can. And then I'm using hotkey E to rotate, and I only want to grab the inside circle. If you rotate with the outside circle, it'll skew it forward and back. We don't want to do that. We want it to just be perfectly in this plane. So that looks pretty good. I think I'm happy with that. Now I want to bring in another reference image for the side view. So we're going to do the same process. We're going to click on this image plane right here. And we're going to grab it again. I'm just grabbing it from my downloads folder for now. Okay, looks good. And then I'm going to, again, I'm going to line it up for this side. So we're going to go about there because we want the bottom lined up with that bottom edge, and then we also want to center this, and let's rotate this. Again, we're grabbing that inside circle only for that rotation. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then the best way to check if these are lined up well is to come into your perspective view, and it's a little bit awkward, but you're going to try and look at this angle, and look, it looks like these aren't perfectly lined up. So I'm going to use the one that I currently have the move tool on to drag it up, and you see how I kind of bridge that gap at the top right there, and I kind of line these up a little bit better. Yep, that looks really nice. Okay, so I'm happy with this. So now I have this cross section of reference images. What I want to do is make it so they are further away in my scene so that they aren't in the way of my model, because I'm going to have my model right here in the middle. So I'm going to start by grabbing my front one, and in our perspective view, let's orbit around our scene a little until it says front up here at the top. So we want to look and see front. We're going to grab that image plane, that front one, and we're going to use the blue arrow to push it backwards, okay? You can tell you're pushing it the right direction because the grid is visible. If you were pushing it the wrong direction, it would come on top of the grid in the front view. So I'm pushing it this way so the grid is visible in front of it. That looks good. And I'm going to do the same thing with my side view image. This time I want to push it this direction. And again, you want to make sure the grid is in front of it. If you put it this way, it came in front of the grid, then you went the wrong direction, push it the other way. Be really careful when you're moving these that you don't move them up and down or left to right at all. Like, only move them in the direction that I'm telling you, otherwise they will misalign themselves. So you might have to go back and fix it if they if you accidentally move them in other directions. Again, we don't want to grab from the middle because that lets us move it anywhere in our scene. We only want to grab from these arrow keys. Okay, once these are pushed back, they look pretty good. I am going to go ahead and create a reference layer from them. So they came in as image planes in my outliner. If you don't have your outliner out, you can click to toggle that out. That's good. We want them to be image planes. But it's kind of annoying that they're in here and easily like movable and stuff, because if I start 3D modeling my object, I don't want to accidentally move that background reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into the channel box layer editor. If you don't have this window yet, if you're in the modeling standard toolkit, it doesn't automatically come with it. So you can go up here to Windows, and you're going to go down to General Editors. Over here we have channel box / layer editor. Click on that, open it up, and then it might pop up outside of here like this. If it does that, just click and drag the top of it over, and we want to stick this in with our modeling toolkit and attribute editor. And you're going to hover over this. You don't want the blue line on the top like that. You want it off to the side, like top corner. Okay, and that's good. And then here we have our layers down here, channel box editor up there, and our modeling toolkit and attribute editor are still there. If you lose these, you can re-add them in. They're right up here in that scene. But this looks good. Okay, on my channel box layer editor, over here in layers, I am going to add these image planes to a layer. So I'm going to select one. Right now I'm in Q, which is just the regular selection mode. That's hotkey Q. And I'm going to hold Shift and select the other one. You can tell they're both selected because the one I selected more recently is green and the previous one is white highlighted around it. Okay, and in your outliner you can see both are selected. That's good. We're going to layers and we're going to choose create layer from selected. Alright, so now we have this layer 1. If you hit the V, you can toggle the visibility. So if I hit the V, they turned invisible. If I hit that same box again and the V comes back, they're visible again. That's good. I want to be able to toggle my visibility sometimes. And then over here, not the P, don't worry about the P, just leave the P on. Over here in this third box, it's empty right now. If you click once, it goes to T. That's not super helpful, so let's click again, and now it's in R, which is reference mode. So you can see the image, but now if you click away, you can no longer select them in your scene. The only way to select them would be in your outliner. This is really nice because then you don't accidentally mess around with this image and offset the positioning, because that would be annoying. Okay, so we want to make sure this is on R, which is reference mode. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going to come into this perspective view really quick, and let's start 3D modeling this object. So for this lab, we're starting with a cube, and we're going to come in here to the front view. So I'm hitting the space bar to toggle between views. Coming into the front view, and we're going to use the W tool to drag this up a little bit. Okay, that looks good, and we're going to use hotkey R. Let's scale it down a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is make it line up between the top of this like first orange bump and the bottom of the orange. Okay, that looks good. This is my front view. Let's also look into our side view. So coming over here to the side view looks good as well. That means they're lined up good. Awesome. Okay, I want to scale this box out so that it goes to the edge of the cone. So let's do R and use that handle, and we're going to scale it out in the front view direction first. That looks good. And then we also want to scale it on this side. I'm just grabbing the handle off to the side because I only want to scale it in one direction at a time. If you grab from the center, it'll scale all at once. I don't want to do that. So that looks pretty good. Like maybe I want it right about there. Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, so now that we've scaled out this box, we're going to come into our perspective view. And we're going to hit hotkey Q again for selection, right over here. And we're going to use our right click menu, so hold down right click, and we're going to choose face. And we're going to delete top and the bottom face. So you should just have 4 faces and with a hole in between. That's perfect. That's what we want to work with. Now we're going to go into our edge selection, so right click selection. And then we're going to select these edged loops. These are loops of edges that go all the way around an object. So the way to select one edge is just click one edge. To select the entire loop, you can double click an edge, and you can tell the entire loop is selected because it all is highlighted in orange. That's perfect. That's good. That's what we want. So go ahead and double click, make sure you have that top edge loop selected, hit the space bar, come over here to the front view, and don't click into it, just hit the space bar, because if you click into it, you'll lose your selection. And now I'm going to use the wireframe mode, which is hotkey 4, so I can easily see my reference image behind my object. Okay, I'm going to use the W tool. I'm going to pull this up ever so slightly. I think I like it lined up more with like maybe the sides, but that looks pretty good. And now I'm going to use the extrude tool. Okay, so this is our modeling toolkit. It's right here, extrude. The hotkey for this is Control E. Get used to that hotkey because we use extrude a lot. So we're going to extrude this, which basically makes a duplicate of our edges and adds faces underneath. So it pops out a portion of our object, just like it looks like in here. Let's do Control E to extrude. And the first thing you notice is this widget pops up. We don't want to use these controllers because often they mess up the direction that we're trying to move our edges. So instead, we're going to hit the W hotkey or the move tool right away. Don't click away because right now we have an extrude loaded. You can't see it, but this widget means that it did get loaded. And we're going to hit W really quick, and we're going to come here, hit space, don't click away, make sure you have that selection, hit space, and let's pull up that selection. Okay, so you can see that that extrude did happen. Okay, I'm going to hit Control Z, but I don't click away, because I don't actually want to move this up. Instead, I want to scale it in. So I'm going to hit hotkey R for scale, and I want to scale it in this direction, side to side, and this direction, but I don't want to scale it up and down at all. So I'm going to grab this little green box right here, and I'm just going to pull it into the side. And I'm trying to make that little lip in my cone. You see how the cones kind of have these little lips as you're going up? It slowly gets narrower towards the top. So that looks pretty good. I like where it's at. And now I'm going to do extrude again. So you can hit extrude or do Control E. And again, don't touch the widget right here. Hit the W tool right away. And let's pull this up a little bit with the top arrow. Let's go into our front view so we can see a little easier. Okay, so as you can see, we extruded in. We kind of made that first edge, and then we pulled up. Pull up to the next lip. Looks good. Hit the space bar again, and we're going to extrude again. So Control E, R, hotkey R. We're going straight into the scale. We're going to scale this in just a little bit, just a little bit. Again, you're just grabbing it with this little box right here. Okay, that looks good. And then Control E again, hotkey W to move. Let's pull this up again. All right, let's look over here. This time, we're gonna go up to the next lip. Looks good. So we're kind of making like a tiered cake sort of thing with our extrude tool. But basically, we're trying to match our cone as we go. So if you look over here, you can see we're matching our cone as we go in both the side and the front view. Okay, we want to extrude again, so Control E. All right, hotkey R. Let's pull in that lip again. That looks pretty good. Come back over here. Oh, actually, let's do Control E again here, and then W, and let's pull that up. And we're gonna come back into our front view. Make sure it goes up to the next ledge. Looks good. Hit spacebar, hit spacebar. Let's do Control E again to extrude, and hotkey R. And we're gonna go ahead and pull that in a little bit. And then Control E again to extrude, hotkey W, and let's pull it up. Hit the spacebar. All right. I'm using Alt and the middle mouse to pan up so I can see. And this time we're going all the way up here. Okay, that looks really good. So at this point, you should have, ideally, this kind of tiered cake thing that matches your cone a little bit. If you want, you can go through object mode, let's do face selection, and you can scale some of these edges in a little. Like, let's say this bottom one is a little bit bigger than I want. So I'm going to use Q so I don't accidentally move things. And then if you click one face and then you hold down Shift and you double click another face, what it does is it actually selects all of the faces in that loop. So if we go to the wireframe mode, you can see that all of the faces in that loop only were selected. That's awesome. I'm going to hit hotkey 4 to get into wireframe, hotkey 5 to go back to shaded. And then I can come in here to like my side view, and let's say I want to actually, I decided I actually wanted to scale it in a tiny bit on the side view. Front view, I'm happy with that, so I'm not going to mess with the scaling, but that looks pretty good to me. Okay, if you want, you can go through and adjust any of those by scaling in those faces. But once you get to this point, you should be pretty good. So we're going to do edge selection again. Let's double click one of those edges to grab that top edge loop again. And we're going to extrude again. Control E, so you can extrude in either view. Again, you don't want to use the widget that comes with Control E though, with the extrude tool. We're going to use W. And this time, let's go ahead and pull this up to right about like halfway up that curved portion. And we're going to use hotkey R again. And this time, instead of Control E-ing, we're going to use hotkey R to pull in those edges. And I am grabbing it on this view, grabbing it on my perspective view, but I'm actually looking at my front view as I'm doing this because I want to kind of match that curvature. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to use the W key, and let's just go ahead and pull that up a little. Okay, I want to scale that out just a little bit like that. That looks good. Okay, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to do another extrude. So Control E again, W again, let's pull it up again. And this time we're going to scale that in quite a bit more. So R, and let's scale that into like right about there. That looks pretty good. Okay. And actually, yeah, let's just go to right about there. Let's leave like a hole in our object. Okay. So you should have a hole on the bottom and a hole on the top, but you've kind of started to create some of the shape of your object. This looks good. All right, let's go ahead and make this object less boxy and more cylindrical. Okay, so the best way to do that is to use the Insert Edge Loop tool. So we're going to go up here to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, and open up this window really quick, and we want to check Insert with Edge Flow, okay? So it might be unchecked for you. Go ahead and check it. If it was checked, leave it checked. That's good. And then exit out of this tool settings. Right over here is the most recent tool. So it is loaded. Insert Edge Loop tool looks like this kind of grid with a dashed orange line going through it. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come into our perspective view, and we're going to hover over our object and then click and hold. And you see this green dashed line kind of popped up. So that's good. We want that, and we want to make sure it's on the side that we're looking at. So for some of you, if you click it and it looks like this, where the green dashed line is kind of behind your object, it doesn't go all the way through, that means you're grabbing those back faces. That's not good. So hit Control Z, and let's go ahead and grab this front part of our object. Try and get about in the middle, and then let go. Actually, Control Z, before we do this really quick, double check that you have the right number of vertices, okay? So if I select my object, I should have 48 vertices. You can see these in the modeling toolkit. It says 48 vertices. If you have more than that, then maybe you accidentally hit extrude twice in a row, or you did it too many times. So what you're going to do is you're going to try and clean up your object, find out where the issue is. You can do this by going row by row and hitting the wireframe mode and making sure visually I only have 4 vertices selected, and it says 4 vertices here, so that's good. If I select another layer, so the next layer up, I should have 8 vertices selected because visually I have 8, and it says 8 over here, that's good. If you ever have more than that, then select a small portion of them and double check. Make sure visually it looks like 2 and it says 2 up here, that's good. If you visually only have 1 selected but up here it says 2, then you're going to have to do something we call merge to merge those vertices together. So that is up here in Edit Mesh and Merge. Let's open the Merge window. And I would just change the threshold to 0.001, okay? And you want this checked, always merge for 2 vertices, and then just hit Apply. And if there were 2 right there, it should merge them into 1. So you can go through and clean up your vertices that way. But vertex mode. If you have 48, then you have the right number, and that's good, and you're good to proceed. All right, let's go to object mode again. Again, we want that insert edge loop tool. Luckily, that's the last one we just used. If you don't have it loaded over here, again, it's up here in mesh tools, insert edge loop, open the window, make sure insert with edge flow is selected. It is. Awesome. Now we're gonna come here and we're gonna insert with edge flow, and it pops out our object. If you pan around, you can see it kind of popped out the shape. That's awesome because we have insert with edge flow selected, so we want it to do that. So now I'm going to go around and I'm trying to select about halfway in between each side. If you're not happy with where you put it, you can hit Control Z to undo it. So I'm going to go through getting about halfway. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, so now it's kind of all expanded out. That's awesome. We're going to go back to object mode and hit Q. Make sure you're not still in that insert edge loop tool. Okay, so now a couple things I noticed. Now my cone is way too fat in both of these directions, so we have to fix that. Let's use the scale tool again, hotkey R, and let's scale in just the side here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we're going to scale in this side here as well. But we don't want to scale up and down at all because we like the height of our object. Okay, now that looks pretty good. The next thing to do is to make sure your object is the same on every side. So we kind of insert edge loops randomly, and if you come in here, you see how this isn't lined up. I have two offset edges right here, and same thing right over here. What that means is I kind of missed when I was aiming for the middle. So there's a quick and easy way to fix this. We're going to go to object mode and face. We're going to come in here and we're going to delete half of the faces. So delete those like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, now, I didn't show you guys this in class, but I am going to show it to you now because I remember this is the best thing to do before you mirror things. We're going to come into our front view, and what we're going to do is we're going to make this a straight line so that when we mirror our object, it lines up perfectly. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to the multi-cut tool, and we're going to click above our object, hold down Shift, and drag below, and we're kind of cutting into our object right here in a straight line. Okay, that looks really good. I like that. And now we're going to use face selection, and we're going to delete everything to the left of that line I just drew. Okay, so now that looks good, and if you come into here, it looks good. So that's lined up. That looks really good. I like it. So I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to mirror this. So we're going to hold down Shift, right click, and we're going to choose mirror. Holding down Shift and right click, coming down here, we're going to the mirror window. And we're going to choose a direction to mirror this. If you erased half of your object, not from the front mode, but from the side mode, you might have to mirror in the Z direction instead of the X direction. For me, X directions should work. So we're going to uncheck combine with original real quick. X minus should be the right direction, and hit apply. If it shows up like this, then that's the right direction. Hit Control Z real quick. If for you it came in and your object disappeared, then maybe you're in the wrong direction. So you're in plus instead of minus, so hit Control Z and switch it to the right direction and then hit apply. If for you it came in like this, right, and it doesn't look like anything happens, you can drag this to see, oh, it's trying to mirror it in the wrong direction. So let's hit Control Z twice real quick. I need to switch to a different direction. If you hit apply in the Y direction, as you can see, it's trying to mirror it in this direction. That's wrong, so hit Control Z. Make sure you're going in the right direction, and negative right axes, right direction. Hit apply. Okay, that looks really good. So I like that. So I'm going to hit Control Z again, and this time I'm going to choose combine with original. This will save me a lot of time because it's going to merge the border vertices together. If you didn't do the multi-cut, flattening, straightening out this line right here, it's hard to use merge combine with original because it'll do it incorrectly sometimes. So for this one we should be okay though because we use the multi-cut tool to cut through our object. So I'm going to hit apply. Oh, okay, so notice how at the top it tried to merge that together. I don't love that. So I can drag it out and make it like this. And that's like okay, but I don't love it. So instead of that, I'm gonna hit Control Z and I'm gonna unclick Combine with Original, and we'll just hit Apply. And this time I'm going to go ahead and just leave it where it is, and I'll hit Q and close. Okay, so next I should have two separate objects. Okay, that's good. I want to combine these together so that I can weld them back together. So I'm going to select both, click on one, click on the other, going up to Mesh, hit Combine. Okay, so now it's one object. Now I need to bridge this gap, right? For you, if there wasn't a gap, then you could still have the issue of overlapping geometry. So let's go to vertex mode, and you can use the top view for this, and just select all of the vertices where you think the gap is. And if you have 48, then you have overlapping vertices or a gap. But if you have 24, then you have the right number, okay? So if you have 48, we're gonna have to merge these together. And there are a couple different ways to do it. One of the fastest ways to do it is to go into the edge selection and use this target weld tool. And we want to merge to center. And then I'm just going to go through and I'm going to click and drag my edges together like this. Looks good. Okay. And what I'm basically doing is sewing these together. And you can skip an edge because it'll automatically do the one in between for you. For these ones, we're not skipping because it is automatically doing that ledge edge for us. Okay, that is probably the fastest way to merge it together. There are a couple other ways, but that's probably your best bet. So make sure you have center selected, not target. Otherwise, it'll be kind of lopsided. If you had overlapping geometry, maybe a better way to merge those vertices together would be to just select them. And then you're going to go here to Mesh, edit Mesh, down to Merge, open up that window, and then make sure this number has a lot of zeros in front of it before you hit Apply. Because that's going to automatically merge those vertices that are close together. And you should have 24 here, so that's the right number. All right, this looks really good. Okay, so at this point, you're pretty close. Let's make sure we save. Sorry, bad practice. Make sure you're saving often. So I'm going to do File, Save As. We're going to do My Computer. I want this in my H drive. 3D Graphics, Autodesk, Projects. Okay, and then we're going to call this Maya Lab 4. And then I would just call it Maya Lab 4 for now. Okay, and then we're going to hit Save As. For me, I'm going to call it Beginning, because I have a couple different files, but for you, you could just call it Maya Lab 4. So save as. Okay, that looks good. And now the next step is we're going to go ahead and start creating that handle. Okay, so we want the handle. So the best thing to do, oh, really quick, if you look in your outliner, you see how you have these weird groups going on? We don't like that, so let's get rid of those. We're happy with where our shape's at right now, so we're going to erase the history of it by just duplicating it. So we're going to do Control D to duplicate. The one that came in, we're going to immediately rename to cone, and then all of these other ones we're going to delete, okay? If when you deleted them, it deleted your cone too, hit Control Z and make sure you duplicate the cone first. So by clicking on it, Control D, duplicate, rename it, there you go. And that deletes the history of the object, which means if you hit Control Z on the object itself, you won't be able to undo those things. If I hit Control Z right now though, it'll just undo that delete. Alright, so that looks good. Now we're going to start 3D modeling this handle. So I'm going to bring in a cube really quick. And let's move this up right over here. And let's go ahead and scale it down a little bit. So I'm going to grab it from the middle. Let's scale it down a little bit. And I'm going to scale it down from the top in the front view. And from the side. Okay, that looks really good. Okay, and then to finish up with this part, go on to the next video.